Boom. Okay. Hello, welcome. Hi, Janet. Here we are at at our council meeting. It's our monthly open council meeting where we invite the entire membership and we conduct business as usual. This is a working council meeting. The agenda will be published for the membership to see, and we publish it ahead of time. And comments from everyone will be reserved until the open forum part of the session. We'll have time set aside during the open forum where members can make a comment, and due to time limitations, the amount of time each member may speak is decided by the secretary. All right, so during this open forum meeting, discussions on issues raised by membership will only occur if time allows, and if follow-up is needed, it will be an agenda item for the next meeting. Okay, so if you're unable to attend the meeting and would like to submit a comment, email us at council@kingstonfoodcoop.com by 3 p.m. of the day of the meeting. So that's for next meeting. And then finally, we'll have an executive session, which is a closed section, which will conclude each council meeting. So let's get started with a little bit of council updates.
All right, so let's see, we'll start with membership numbers. We had a little bit of a bump in membership recently. We now have 1,159 co-op members, and of those 186 are solidarity members, so that's just about 16%. We got a couple new members at our summer party on Saturday, which was wonderful. And I don't really have much of an update for our upcoming member events, but maybe we can just do a very brief recap of the summer party. And I wonder if I could ask Siobhan to do just like a 30-second recap of the summer party. Is that okay with you, Siobhan?
Yeah, sorry. We had a summer party last Saturday, July 17th. It was from 1 to 4, right next to the future home of our co-op at 718 Broadway. That was the Big Bubble Laundromat parking lot. Our co-op will be at 708 Broadway. It was a really nice event. We had, I think, 300 to 400 people throughout the day. We had lots of different organizations part of the event: Bike Friendly Kingston, Radio Kingston, My Kingston Kids, Rise Up Kingston, oh gosh, the Y Farm, drawing a blank because I'm trying to speed it up. But we had food from local restaurants on Broadway, Culture, Seasoned Delicious, and La Hacienda. And it was a really great time. It was a lot of fun, music and all that. And we also had a co-op bike ride happening the second Thursday of each month. At 6 p.m. we leave from the YMCA parking lot. So we will have another one in August, weather permitting. And so just keep your eye out for that if you want to join our next ride.
Thank you, Siobhan. I just also want to let you know that I think you're killing it. That event was really amazing. I had such a good time. It just really brought the community together. I had a very proud moment. It was very good. Went off without a hitch. We didn't have to do anything. You did it all. It's great.
Thanks, Joe. I mean, it wouldn't be what it was without all the organizations that made it so much fun. But yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Okay, is there anything else that we want to update anyone on? Do we have we set our upcoming membership events, like a financial report? Anything new over there, Kevius?
Nothing crazy new. I like to, during this section, may someone share the screen sharing privileges?
Okay, you should have it now. How's that?
Yeah, so as a general overview, we shared this slide in our annual meeting, which sort of shows some expenses and projections we have for this year. In very short, we've achieved about 37% of our budget, so we're under budget for this year. And the main reason for that is if you refer to the letter that we sent out is we put a lot of things on pause so that we can pull back and really assess the foundations of this. So a lot of the spending towards the infrastructure development will now happen in 2022 later that year. But some really nice things have happened, such as we've been able to give, shoot over our budget as far as community donations go. And so that's just really nice, a way that we're still staying engaged on the budget in this year.
Oh, thanks a lot. Does anyone have any comment about that?
I'll add that the main, I think the main piece of, just to go into a little bit more of what Kivia said, is that we had budgeted to hire for a general manager, and that was a big chunk of our operating budget, and that's specifically what we're putting into 2022.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay, are there any reminders, Katie?
I don't think so. I think we've touched on all of the updates.
Perfect. Okay, well then maybe we should all take a moment to welcome our newest council member, Rachel Yeager. Yeah.
Yay! Yeager.
Yeah.
Welcome, Rachel.
That's so good. That will stick. Okay. All right, cool. So then, so let's just move on to working group updates, which there probably aren't any because we're on recess. Who wants to take it away? Maybe Lindsay, you want to?
We are on recess with our working groups for the summer, coming back hot in the fall. But the working group that's still in action right now is the Building Development Committee. So we do have to talk about the RFP, and I just would like to ask, did all council members have a chance to read through the RFP that was sent in your agenda packet? Okay, so no one needs to sit out this discussion? Great. No worries if you do. So we have to decide whether this is what we want to send out or if we need to change it. So this is a great time for anyone to make comments, raise questions. I think I have one question, but I'll leave it. I'd like to hear from you guys first.
So I just want to give a little context about this for members who are listening, if that's okay, since they didn't get to see it ahead of time. So this is the RFP that's going to our 3 finalist architectural firms. And it's a request for proposals. So the outcome of this would be that our 3 finalists will submit their proposals to design the building. And so I think that's enough of a basic intro, and just a reminder to all the members who are coming in now, there'll be a questions period at the end. So if you have anything you want to ask, please be sure to jot it down so we can get to it at the end of the meeting in the open forum. Okay, sorry, go ahead, Lindsay.
Nope, okay, I would really like to hear, what, I mean, Katie and I work very closely with the Building Design Committee as the liaison, so we're pretty intimately familiar with the document, but for Kivius, Joe, and Rachel, who are new to the document, I'd love to hear your thoughts on it.
Joe, were you gonna say something?
No, it wasn't. I was waiting for you to say something.
Oh, the only question that I had that kind of took me was the design phases one. I thought, like, when I first read it, because I'm very narrative, I thought it was going to be design phases and narrative, but to me it felt like, oh, here are just the things that you overview. So it read less as phases and more as like, here are your general roles and responsibilities as an architect in this. So that was the only thing that the first time around I was kind of like thrown off at, but I mean, that was literally the only question I had, and it was answered pretty straightforward.
So maybe
that's a great question though. Our phases is, I mean, that might be an that might be an RFP jargon, because we had help with our everyone on the Building Development Committee are pretty much everyone are professionals in this field. So maybe that might be jargon in that field. We should ask about that, because if it's not, I agree, it's a slightly strange term.
Right, because it's really more of a scope. That's really the scope rather than the phases. It does kind of touch on some phases stuff, but that's a good point. I'll make a note of that to check in with Building Development Committee folks to see if that's how we want it to be, or should it just be scope of work?
Good point.
Yeah, so one of the things that I think we should decide tonight, if we can, is about what we're asking of the architects, because there's been some back and forth about, you know, are we asking them for, okay, go ahead, Lindsay.
But I mean, another nitpicky thing before we move on to this big, because I think that's what your discussion is a big one. I really would like there to be more clarity in the criteria for award section. Right now, it just reads that it will be based on a rubric, but I think a little more clarity on the fact that it's that the rubric, who's filling out the rubric, who has the big, it doesn't say anything about who has the most input in this decision process. And I don't think that that's very transparent to the architects. It does say, you know, with feedback from our members, but I think the fact that the members of the Building Design Committee are going to be filling out the rubric and making their recommendations to the council, I would like to see that written, because I just think that makes it more clear.
Okay, that makes sense. And I think it also comes back to one of the questions that we have had, which is kind of overall project governance. Like, we know that the council is going to make the ultimate decision about which architect to hire, but like, where does, you know, how are we weighing the input from the Building Development Committee and the rest of our members into this process? So I think that's a really good point, Lindsay. And do we want to, I mean, I think it's also okay to leave it like somewhat, I don't know how much detail we need to get into, but I do think it would be useful to have like the next level of detail than we have right now.
I think knowing who's filling out the rubric is important, and that the like really will come from the Building Development Committee is important. But yeah, I don't think that needs, I personally don't think it needs super detailed, like this percentage or that percentage or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But is it vague? Is it vague how the decision is being made? Because it doesn't seem, I mean, it seems very clear to me that we have charged the building in their charter, we've charged them with making recommendations to the council on how we move forward with this project.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would just add that we have, I think because we're doing this plan to have the presentations open to all of our members, that we would just want to be clear, both with the architects and the BDC and and their members, about like what is the role of the members in, like, we're inviting them to participate in this presentation, and like where does that, are they filling out a rubric as well? And how are we weighing that?
Any thoughts?
Is that something that we would need to put in this RFP? Like, is that something that
I think this is a side conversation. I don't think it needs to go in the RFP necessarily, but I do think it's something that the Building Development Committee should know, like and members should know what is the conduit for input, and how important is that. I think that it would be good to clarify that. But you're right, Joe, that is a side conversation that maybe we should talk about after we finish talking about the RFP.
Yeah.
Good call. You're so smart.
So does it make sense? This is a good place for us to jump into the next kind of like the big discussion about the RFP. Okay, so for context, we're kind of trying to figure out if we, one option would be that we could ask the architects to come with a full concept design, and we offer them an honorarium for the pretty intensive amount of work that is required to do that ahead of a proposal, or as a part of a proposal, or we just kind of ask for like a more standard proposal that is more focused on fees and subcontractors and that kind of thing. the challenge of asking, if we get concept designs with the proposal, it's lovely because we get to see some concepts. It's exciting. We get the ball rolling. We have we would have like proprietary access to the designs that all 3 finalists create, even for the 2 that we don't select, which could be good, but also kind of does seem to bypass a lot of the community-driven piece that has been really important to us. So this is just kind of a conversation starter. I wonder if anyone has questions or thoughts about it.
Well, I wonder if it doesn't truly bypass the kind of like engaging the public at large. If everyone sees the concept and still can have feedback. I mean, it doesn't mean it's the done deal, real McCoy. It just means that it's a concept that they were thinking and might aid us in deciding on who we would actually pick. That's kind of like not arriving at anything, but
yeah, I think if we want the members and the general community input, they probably like to look at a concept more than like a document. So I think if we just post sort of like, here are 3 concepts that were given to us, which one is more aligned with your taste? We can begin the participatory design process at that moment. And it'll sort of justify, which is, I guess, 2 points later on the agenda, the honorarium, right? It'll just make that a bit more, add some more weight to there being one. I think, so if we want the general masses who probably doesn't have the time to look at an RFP to submit a concept and something that just says, what is your taste? It also sort of like gets them more comfortable with the architecture firm who's going to be leading the participatory design. Say, hey, this person sees eye to eye with me. This person understands my aesthetic. And it kind of like just breaks the ice for a voice that's more comfortable for the community to be in concert with. That's my thought.
I really like that point of view, Kivius, and I 100% agree. I think that it's really hard to ask people to judge a firm without having something concrete to base that opinion on. I don't think I could do it. And also, I think we've made it really clear in our conversations with at this point, we've had quite a few conversations with the finalist firms. And I think they understand how important the community input design process is. It's, it's been a major factor in every conversation that we've had with them. So I don't think asking them to like provide what they've obviously been thinking about us this whole time that we've been in conversation with them. So asking them to sort of like illustrate that thought process on paper, I don't think we'll lock them into anything. They've already been thinking about it. To assume that they haven't thought about anything would be, I think, a little naive. And so I think they'll understand that whatever they put on paper now that gets them the job is not the final. It's so malleable. That I would guess that they would still be open to lots and lots of change, and the final might look completely different than the concept.
Yeah, I'm wondering, do you have an opinion, Rachel and Katie?
Yeah, I gave Kivius a thumbs up. I thought that was a really great point. Made a lot of sense, and I'm really excited about the participatory element from the community, and visually just having something like beautiful to look at. I think it's a really great first step in that direction, and then hopefully getting more specific as things develop.
And I realized that I just said, oh, do you have a thought? Like, sorry, I didn't mean to call you out if it was surprising. Okay, sorry. Yes.
Yeah, it's really exciting to me, and I think it'll add to a sense of momentum, which will be really beneficial. I just want to also make sure that we're being really clear with members in the community that like things that are presented in these proposals are like have nothing necessarily to even do with the final store, because we could really like one of the conceptual designs and still change it 100, do a 180 on it in theory. So I just would want to make sure that we're really communicative about that part.
Yeah.
So are you asking for like an artist rendering? Like just a drawing?
Yeah, we're talking of we're considering asking for a concept design, which would be could be presented any number of ways. It could be like a 2D drawing, it could be a 3D model, it could be like a Pinterest board type thing that has you know, lots of visual elements. So we're kind of at this point, unless we want to tighten up what we're asking for, council, at this point, it's pretty open-ended about that.
Just as long as you're providing some kind of visual for everybody to see.
Yep, exactly.
Okay.
And then what are we asking? Are we going to give parameters around what we're looking for, or?
Well, I think if we're going to offer a significant honorarium for this, then we probably should have, you know, at least like some level of expectation about what that is. I'm not really sure what level is appropriate, but.
Yes, and then is that a good segue into the honorarium conversation?
Let's just confirm that in terms of the RFP itself, minus the honorarium discussion, the only two changes that we need to make are checking that the terminology phases is correct for basically what we're asking the RFP to include, and then also just clarifying a little bit the criteria for award. Other than that, everyone feels good? Okay, cool. Then yes, Joe.
And we're in consensus about asking for a concept design rather than doing a more classic RFP, right?
Sorry. I am in consent. I think we are. And I mean, I definitely want to ask, but you know, here's the next conversation, the honorarium, which, you know, it's been recommended that we provide an honorarium, and I didn't know if you wanted to take that away, Katie, and just kind of discuss it a little more.
Yes, thanks, sorry. Yes, okay, so, you know, hearing from our professional guides in this field, we've learned that it's really common to ask for, or expected even, to offer an honorarium to architects for their work when they do something at this level to create an actual conceptual design. And in particular, if that information becomes owned by the co-op, which is so we would enter into a contract with them so that all three of them would basically hand over ownership of the design concepts to the co-op. So, so the way that we've been, basically it's been recommended that we offer a $5,000 to $10,000 honorarium per finalist firm. So for the three firms, that would be $15,000 to $30,000. Novo has requested that we do that in addition, like besides it being a normal thing as part of the this type of work. Novo has also asked that we offer this, and that they will be paying the honorarium as well. So it's not going to come out of our current operations budget, which I think is an important piece of this, because we definitely didn't budget for $30,000 of architectural honorariums. So I think that's the background piece.
Okay, so it's not going to cost us anything, and what we get out of it is really cool concepts around what it could look like. I'm in favor.
And we own all the concepts. So basically we're saying you're creating this, we're buying this from you. They don't retain any of those rights.
When I thought that it was going to cost us, you know, really, I was you know, more curmudgeon-y about it in Slack. However, now I know it's not going to cost us anything. It's great. Okay.
I think also that we're asking them to present like in front of each other. It's like a big ask. I don't know how normal that part of it is. So I feel much more comfortable asking them to come, you know, join us in this community hullabaloo if they are getting paid.
I wish I got paid $10,000 to draw things.
You could, you just need a career change.
And for context, I'll say also that our former owners representative, Urban Projects Collaborative, I asked them for a little context for this. And Sarah there broke it down for me because I was like, that seems like so much money. And Sarah broke it down for me and said, like, here's the number of people that it usually requires to do this level of work. It's going to be like, 100 hours of work over 2 months. And they're going to have several of their members of their firm working on it. And so that's kind of the context of the honorarium amount. It's not more than a sketch.
Mm-hmm. It's a big deal.
So, yeah.
I'm excited to see what they come up with, what they render.
So exciting. Can I just to make sure that we're hearing from anyone, all of the council members, does anyone want to talk about why they don't think this is a good idea? Or feel, if anyone feels uncomfortable with the idea of an honorarium?
Every time you move, sorry. Every time you move, please.
Yeah, I'm on board with the idea. I'm just curious to how we're going to arrive at the actual number and where the recommendations came from.
Yes. Okay, great question. So let me pull up, let me take a second to pull up this email from Sarah because she breaks it down here. All right, so basically she said, we're also asking them to price out the project by square foot. So they would likely have to hire a cost estimator, which is typically $2,500. So basically the way that she broke it down was like, it's going to cost them a total of $22,000 to create this concept design for us at the number of hours that they are working at their normal, at a typical billable rate. And so we're not going to offer $22,000. So I think it's about what we're comfortable with, what Novo is comfortable with. Honestly, because we're not paying it, I'm almost, and Novo has done several of these types of things. I'm almost willing to just ask them what they are willing to offer for the honorarium.
I feel uncomfortable deciding what someone else will pay for it. Like, if we were looking at it in our budget, I'd be like, well, we can take it from that line we had for the GM and we can, but if it's not coming out of our budget, I don't see how we have any, like, why would we dictate it? Except to say that if our consultant said it's going to cost these firms about $22,000, and we can say we would be happy to cost share that, and this is what we've been told as the estimate. But other than making a recommendation, I don't feel super comfortable deciding what someone else should spend on this.
So you're saying the $5,000 or $10,000 is, so you're saying we should ask what Novo's willing to pay and go with that.
Yeah.
And then curious, how did we come up with the $5,000 or $10,000? Did that come from the BDC or did that come from UPC? BDC being the Building Development Committee.
The 5,000 was from Building Development Committee folks, and I think the 10,000 was a Novo number. Maybe they said the 5,000 to 10,000 range. I can't remember exactly which one came from which one, but basically they both fell within that range.
We split the difference, call it 6, and then be happy about it.
Well, if we split the difference, would it be 7,500?
I weighted more toward the bottom. Okay. So do we just want to split the difference, call it, and then, call it generous? It's meeting everyone in the middle. Or.
Well, I think, we could do that, but also I think what came up about, like, this is not actually our money to spend, is we could we could say, like, I think what we have power to do is say, like, this is what we agree we would like to do is offer the honorarium. We'd like there to be a concept design. And then we go to the person, the organization that's offering the stipend or the honorarium itself and ask them what
Sorry, that's what I meant. Like, could we
feels
just?
right to them.
Okay,
Okay. Oh, okay. Sorry.
back to them and say, you know, well, 75 and.
Okay.
Okay, great. Do we feel good about that? Is your question answered, Rachel?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So are we all, is this consensus? Yes, we are gonna go to Novo and say, hey, this is what we'd like to pay them. Is this cool with y'all? Dope. Okay, good.
Works for me.
All right, cool. So we're ready to move on, it seems. Oh, shoot. Let me look at where we are.
And I'll just say that we're technically our RFP was supposed to be released tomorrow. So we have a couple of these changes that we talked about making, and we also need to like include the information about the honorarium and like get details about how the payment is going to work, and like finalize the contract for the concept design. So I would say we're about a week. We probably need a week.
Okay, so we're pushing that back a week, our release date. And also you brought up a little bit right there, but the law firm that we hired, are we going to have a contract go out with the RFP?
So, so there's actually two contracts if we're doing a concept design, there's a separate contract for the concept design portion because that has proprietary information. And we'll need them to sign that before they like ASAP. And so that's one that I think we can get together pretty quickly. And then the other one is the contract that we'll give to our architect that we select. And that will be for the entire scope of work of the design process of the building. So I've been talking with our lawyer about that, and they suggested we use a standard association, oh my God, AIA, something architect association, architect international association, something like that, contract with like our particular rider included in it. So that's also in the works. And I would suggest that we can follow the release of the RFP with that contract when it's ready. It doesn't need to go out directly with the RFP.
Okay.
Does that make sense? I feel like that was a little confusing. Okay.
Yeah, no, it's good. Sorry.
American Institute of Architects, thank you.
Thanks for the win over here. Okay, so this is like as a next step, Katie.
So the next steps will be that I'll reach out to our contacts at Novo and get information about the amount of the honorarium. I'll work with our lawyers to create the contract for the concept design. We're going to update the RFP to include the two things we talked about, the design phase language versus scope of work, and the clarity about the rubric. So I'm going to plan to I think I should be able to have all of that stuff done by Friday, and then I can share it at the council meeting on Sunday, the working meeting on Sunday.
Okay.
That's my hope, that we'll have everything together by then.
Okay. Does anyone have anything else in the way of next steps? And thank you for handling all that, Katie.
I think that's it.
All right. So now we're moving over to oh wait, we have wait, did we talk about the we just talked about the contract, but okay, the grocery consultant.
Yeah,
Lindsay, do
so
you wanna
we
talk about
need a grocery consultant that should come on about the same time as the architect because it will inform their design process in terms of the technical aspects of building a grocery store, which are different than building a house or a restaurant or an office space, because there's both the mechanical things that have to be present, as well as sort of the economy of movement idea, you know, like if someone is going from the storeroom to the refrigerators to the floor and it's a staff person, you know, you want to make it so that they don't have to lap the store 5 times to do one thing. And that's something that grocery experts know how to do, and potentially could save our operating budget once the store opens, like, you know, tens of thousands of dollars in just, you know, thinking about economy of movement. So it's really important that we get a grocery consultant. And I would propose that sorry, there's a lot going on in here all of a sudden, that we ask the building development committee to issue an RFP for this specific work and sort of get that moving at the end of the summer so that we can bring them on at the same time. I'm gonna mute now.
Oh, great. So we're expecting to have a grocery consultant by the end of the summer to start when the architect begins after we've selected. Is that what you're saying? Thank you.
Yes, or, you know, also that can come on October 1st, which I think is our plan for the architect.
This is great. Okay, cool. I see you making a face, Kevius. Is there something that you were thinking?
Yeah, there's a lot that I'm thinking. But I think just on the grocery consultant, I'm not completely there. And I know we talked about it in our last meeting. I think even then I left not completely there. So maybe we just need to talk about it a bit more and exactly explicitly highlight what we want from this person on a quarterly basis, so that it completely makes sense to me as far as like what we're materializing as we go forward. I think that's the thing that I'm not completely there on.
Could you explain your concerns in like a pretty specific way so that we can talk about them?
It feels very general. Like I'm not completely sold on what we need from a grocery consultant at this phase right now. That's sort of where I am right now, nor does it really fit it completely in with everything that we have or don't have, but plan to have for the next quarter of work. And how will that all help us achieve what we need to achieve by the end of the next quarter? That's sort of like where I am with it. But I think I probably just need a good amount of more information on the grocery consultant.
Are you thinking that, I just want to clarify, Joe, are you clarifying what he's saying?
But go ahead, please.
Are you thinking that that we could hold off on the grocery consultant because the beginning of the architect's job is going to be this, you know, the community input process, and so they won't get to actually doing any schematics until, you know, the next quarter, so we could hold off on hiring the grocery consultant until that next quarter when they start actually putting pen to paper?
I think that's definitely a part of it. And we should like really identify what we need from this grocery consultant in a materialized way every single quarter, and plan a quarter, like a full arc agenda for this person leading up to the opening of the grocery store, right? Like we should have a clear target date for that, so that that person is doing work in a scheduled manner in a way that just really makes sense for us to receive something at the end of every quarter.
I think that that's a great point, and that's something that we could ask the building design committee to do, because they have that, like, we don't know how to do that. I mean, maybe you do. I don't know how to, I wouldn't know how to write that.
Mm-hmm.
But we could ask our fabulous brain trust to do it.
Yeah, and I think when we are, you know, when we have our architect on board and we're really working with the community to develop our programming and like our grocery program, a lot of the grocery consultant stuff is going to fall into place. But also part of their job is going to be to tell us, you know, how, you know, what needs to happen at what time in order for the store to be open on time. And that's stuff that we don't know because we're not like grocery retail experts.
And I think the tail end of that sentence is where the disconnect is for me. We said for the grocery store to open on time. However, we haven't specified a time, right? And we haven't completely specified the parameters of the grocery store. which is going to take a lot of community input and design, or just that whole phase to do. So to me, I think if we spend this next quarter really focusing on the community, developing a lot of the foundations for what the architect does and the scope of the grocery store and the social piece, then after that phase, we can consult with someone. But I think we should really hyper focus on the community having input and determining the scope of work first. And then we'll have a lot more information at that point, how we would engage with a grocery consultant. But I agree that it's necessary work. However, there's still some parts of that sentence that we haven't even determined.
I disagree for some reason, but I can't articulate right now.
But you disagree with Kivius for some reason?
I think I disagree with something in that, just because it feels like, well, okay, let me attempt, I suppose. I think that if we have the architect hired and they start designing, it feels like we can't really design a grocery store without a person who is a grocery kind of like expert, just because it is a grocery store. And so, I'm just wondering if we can run both of these, if these programs can run concurrently, so, at the same time that we're all getting, feedback from the community, so too is the grocery expert. I wonder if that's the compromise. So I guess I don't disagree. I just wonder if there can be a compromise on that, Kivius.
I think you just hit on it, Joe, because I think Kivius is very right in that we need to spend this next quarter focusing on community design input and making sure that the architect has the right information to go forward. But I think that information is equally important for the grocery consultant to know as well, because it's going to affect the programming, and the programming is going to affect the grocery consultant's output. So having everyone on the same team with getting the same knowledge and hearing the same voices, I think will help us make this successful.
Yeah, I think it's like, a question that we face a lot in this group is like, do we want to do all the work first? And then once we have all the answers, we bring people in and tell them what to do, or do we want to have an exploratory process together with the folks that we bring in? And I think sometimes we choose to do the first thing, and sometimes we choose a second thing, and they can both be good options depending on what our needs are. But I think there is something to be said about like having those folks in the professional position do the exploration alongside of us.
Good. I'm going to back a bit. Because maybe we're going with different definitions. Define what you see as a grocery consultant and materialized work that we're getting out of there. Say they're going to do X, Y, and Z. What do we see that as?
So they're going to let us know very nuts and bolts things like how wide should the aisles be to create the best flow for both customers and employees to maneuver about the store. Where should certain grocery items be placed in relation to other grocery items? How many refrigeration units of X type and Y type are needed? Where's the best place to put them? Where should the loading dock be in relation to the storeroom, in relation to how you get into the retail portion of the store? Like very nuts and bolts stuff. So all, and even like where do customers come in and out? Where are the registers placed? Like everything that has to do with any sort of flow of people, any type of people, whether they're staff or customers within the store. And I guess the members, I should say staff or members within the store. All of that's their expertise, and that is knowledge that most architecture firms don't have, and our three finalists don't have. It's only a very few architecture firms that specialize in building grocery stores, and none of them submitted to our project. They're also, so that all of that information is informed by programming in terms of what sort of sections of grocery our member base decides we need, and what percentage of floor space those different sections get. that will inform how they, what suggestions that they make to the designers. So they will really work hand in hand with the designers on making sure that there's really an economy of space and economy of movement happening within the design.
Okay, now that sounds like, I think you hit it on the nail on the coffin. That sounds completely different from what I thought of a grocery consultant when we're talking about e-commerce marketing and all of that stuff, right? And that's usually an existing store. But you mentioned that there are firms that specialize in grocery stores, right? Like that's our ideal thing. So when I think of grocery consulting, that's something completely different to me, right? We're consulting how do we make the best out of this grocery store, which is different than the nuts and bolts.
Mhm.
Okay, all right, so I think we got lost. So ideally, we want an architecture firm that specializes in grocery store, but we not have that, so we need a grocery consultant. However, I'm still on the fence because a grocery consultant to me is really understanding the e-commerce size and systems and processes, but not necessarily the architectural ins and outs. Am I off, but that is a grocery consultant, and have we found that person or those people?
I think that is a different type of consultant, and maybe there are, maybe there are slight variations in the names that these are called. I actually don't know that. But there are other consultants that we can hire to talk about our e-commerce, our point of sale systems, all of that stuff as well. And we might end up hiring a grocery consultant firm that provides all of that. There are some that we have sort of like in our very light exploration of what is out there. We have seen some that do have those different departments, but we don't necessarily need to. We can hire two different. We don't have to go that far. We don't have to hire a firm that is all in one. We can hire just the grocery consultant in terms of the design phase now and look for someone else to do the other things down the road, or maybe the one we find will also happen to have that, and we can decide down the road if we want to utilize those aspects as well. Does that make sense? Basically, Kivis, I don't know.
Yeah,
We'll
no,
see.
I think that makes sense. I think I was just lost in the semantics of like grocery consultant versus someone who has that architectural knowledge and that grocery knowledge. And so I was a
Right.
bit confused by that.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Just so I'm clear. So the grocery so the grocery person so this grocery person is going to specialize in like you should have 3 shelves here and people walk in and so basically it's using the economy of like better economizing the space.
Yeah. We're going to say like, we want to have these kinds of programs in the store. We want to have this type of food. And like, it's important to us that we have enough room for this, and this. And like our pro forma, says we might need these kinds of food products in order or whatever, like all of those pieces. And then they're going to take that information and they're going to say, okay, here's how we can we can design the space to fit all of those needs.
Okay.
It's like practical layout, whereas the architecture firm will be deciding the shape of the shelves. The grocery consultant advises as to where they should go. Does that make sense, that delineation? Yes, Rachel.
How much, if any, of the grocery consultant's role is design based, meaning and design based / what part of their role needs to be in line with their mission, vision, and values, like making people feel comfortable in the store because of XYZ, signage, language, stuff like that. And if that is falling under the jurisdiction of the grocery consultant, I'm leaning more towards that's like very important to have sooner than later. But I don't know where that falls.
If I could make an addendum to your comment / question, like will this person actually go into the community and see, like ascertain needs and see what people, how people live, et cetera?
I think they can, and I think we're also going to be doing some pieces of that. I think we could ask that if it's important to us to find someone who'll do that, then, which I assume it will be, then we can choose someone who'll do that. And yeah, I think, yeah, Rachel, to your point, like there a lot of grocery design people are also, or have on their team like an interior designer. And so as we've talked a lot about, that can contribute a lot to like a white spaces aesthetic if we're choosing someone who's, not aligned with our mission, vision, and values, then like our store will not be aligned with our mission, vision, and values. So yeah, it's really, really important that the person that we choose or the firm that we choose is on the same page.
Well, I think that will be, something that will be baked into the RFP process as well, just like it was for our architect search, someone that is mission aligned, or at least really understands where we're coming from, is super important. And I also think that sort of supports the idea of bringing them on board earlier in this process so they can be a part of these community conversations, because our programming is going to be informed by these conversations, and the work they do will be informed by our programming. So it makes a lot of sense to me to have them in these conversations. And then having someone mission aligned so that they see the value of being in these conversations becomes really important.
I just want to flag, thank you for saying that, Lindsay. And I also want to check back in with you, Rachel, and make sure and see if you had any follow-up for that. But I do want to flag that we're at 6:52 and we still have one more item. Was there anything else about that, Rachel, or was that answered for you?
Yeah, I think that's okay. That's a good enough answer for this moment. Yeah. Fulfill it in 7 minutes. But yeah.
And I really encourage you to be part of the grocery subcommittee if you'd like to. Anyone can be members or council members can be part of that. And if you want to help shape what the RFP looks like and what the selection process looks like, that would be amazing and beautiful.
Do we need to put this agenda item on the next meeting to talk about it further before we make decisions because we are short on time? Or does everyone feel comfortable asking the BDC to start work on this? Obviously, they are not going to do anything without our approval. So they're going to come back to us with their RFP recommendation and we're going to get to edit it and all that stuff. But do we feel comfortable asking them to go forward on this, or do we want to talk further about it?
We're talking about the grocery consultant, yes?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And starting work on the RFP for that search.
I do, but I also want to check in with Kevius and Rachel, who had more of the outstanding kind of like questions about it.
Yeah, I think I want to talk about it more and really map it out, because I need to wrap my head around what we want from them on a quarterly basis, so that they, they're well informed going into the role, what's expected of them, their scope of work, and X, Y, and Z. So I just want to make sure we're all on the same page as far as what we're achieving from them. And right now, even with me not even 100% there, and Rachel and I is like not even, we won't achieve that. So we should talk about that first, really materialize what we want from them in a way that makes sense to all of us before we hit the green light on that.
Okay, so next steps for this is that we need to have further conversation and all those things that Kevius just said.
Can I make like a slight, unless you were going to say something, Rachel? Can I make like a slight counter maybe? And because I'm more in favor of them kind of going forward and then seeing what's produced and then kind of shaping it that way, Kevius, so then we can actually understand what it is that, because I still don't really know. I mean, I'm leaning more toward like, okay, we want to make sure that, voices are, that people can go in and shop and feel comfortable, et cetera. But I also, I don't know, I actually kind of feel like I need to see something before I can actually understand and make questions. And
we could ask the building committee to map out what would the quarterly thrust of the work be for a grocery consultant, and sort of map that out as like the beginning roughed out stages of what an RFP would be as well. And would that be helpful to see?
yeah,
In order to continue this conversation in a fruitful manner, would it be helpful to have a little bit more context in that way?
what do you think about that, Kevius? I think that's a good idea, but
Yeah, let's try it. Yeah,
Yeah, and I was also thinking that, we like giving the red or the green light to the grocery subcommittee to start thinking about this and putting together an RFP. I mean, like looking at how long it's taken us to make the RFP for the architects, like us giving the green light now does not mean that we're going to have an RFP ready to go anytime soon necessarily. I mean, we could expedite it, but I just wanted to like say that like if we start now, we still might be 3, 4, 5 months out from actually creating an RFP that is what we want it to look like. So, which is fine, but all of these things are just like, we have so many levels of editing, which is great because it means we're really getting to what we want it to look like. But like nothing is going to happen before we're all super ready is all I want to say.
Okay, so we have a few more items left on our menu, and
Let's table those. Can we table them for next time?
about to say that. Thank you.
Oh, sorry.
Beating me to it, Lindsay. So do we want to just kind of like push it and table it for the next? Okay, great. All right, so I feel like there's not very much time for an open forum, but we have about 3 minutes, and I'm wondering if anyone, Karen or Steffi, has anything that you wanted to ask or comment on.
Being mindful that we only have 3 minutes left.
You're muted, Steffi.
Okay, let me unmute here. Okay, you were talking about grocery consultants. I'm just wondering if the grocery consultant has a big impact on the architectural designs? Because, is it just something that's going to impact those designs, and would it affect when they would actually become involved in the process?
Yeah, I think they would. I think that's sort of the point we're getting at. It might not affect the design aesthetic, but it will affect the physical layout of the store in a pretty major way. So then thus it would affect the design. So that's why the most fruitful partnership would be to have them in on the ground floor, so that we don't end up with a design that then has to be revised. It's like wasting the architect's time a little bit.
And I just want to quickly to add that typically the grocery consultant, or the ones that I've seen so far, are also doing interior design. So like the architectural firm wouldn't typically be doing, we could ask them to do interior design, but in terms of like the design and the signage and the branding and all of that often falls under the grocery consultant's scope.
Okay. All right.
Did you have any other questions, Steffi?
No, not right now. I mean, I'm sure I'll come up with other questions once I'm off the call, but because that's about.
Well, that seems like a good segue to say that we're always here for everyone and their questions. You can email the council members by emailing council@kingstonfoodcoop.com. And we can, and Siobhan has dropped it in the chat for all of our people that are on the call with us. But yeah, so we're always reachable.
Okay.
Okay, so is there anything else the council wanted to say? Oops, there's my computer. It is now 7. It's announcing that. Is there anything that anyone else wanted to say, so that we can put out the fire and the campfire and say goodnight? Okay, well, thank you so much, Karen. Thank you so much, Steffi, for being here. Those out there watching this, thanks for watching it. We will see you next time. Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Bye.